You know, Hardcore, released in 1979, isn't the kind of movie you just watch. It's a film that stays with you like an echo of pain and disbelief. Directed by Paul Schrader, the same mind who wrote Taxi Driver, it feels like a spiritual companion piece, which is another descent into moral darkness, now this time seen through the eyes of a father rather than a loner. It's a film about loss, guilt, and obsession wrapped inside the decaying underbelly of America's late 70s urban sprawl. Watching it now on Kino Lorber Blu-ray, the film feels even more haunting, not just because of the story, but because of how eerily relevant it still is. The story follows Jack Van Dorn, played by George C. Scott, a devout Calvinist businessman from Grand Rapids, Michigan. His world is built on order, faith, and the comfort of moral certainty. But that fragile peace collapses when his teenage daughter disappears during a church trip to California. When he learns that she's been drawn into the world of pornography, the film shifts from grief to obsession. Jake transforms from a grieving father into a man consumed by the filth he condemns, not because he desires it, but because he must understand it to save her. Now, the connection between Hardcore and Taxi Driver is unmistakable here. Now, both films are journeys into America's corrupted heart, told through a lonely man trying to rescue innocence from the gutters of sin. But while Taxi Driver Travis Bickle descends into violence as a reaction to alienation, Jack Van Dorn's descent is moral, psychological. He's not trying to cleanse the society, he's trying to save one soul, which is his daughter, even if it means losing his own moral clarity. The two films share the same skeleton, a man of conviction walking into hell, but their flesh is different. Now, Taxi Driver is urban nihilism. Hardcore is Calvinist guilt. In Taxi Driver, Bickle sees filth everywhere and appoints himself a savior, lashing out against the system. In Hardcore, Jake is opposite, a man who believes he's righteous until he's forced to face a world where his righteousness means nothing. Schrader's brilliance lies in how he turns Jack's religious devotion into both his strength and his blindness. He doesn't understand that the world he's entering, yet he believes he can fix it. Now that's the tragedy. His morality becomes his burden. Now, one of the film's most powerful sequences is when Jack, disguised as a porn producer, enters the adult film circuit to track down his daughter. Now, there's something heartbreaking about watching this rigid, conservative man forced to mingle with pimps, sex workers, and pornographers, all while pretending to belong. Now, he is disgusted not just by them, but by himself for needing their help. Now, it's a slow moral erosion. George C. Scott captures that inner collapse perfectly. His performance is raw, unfiltered, and you can see the anger in his clenched jaw. Now, that desperation behind his eyes can be seen as well. Now, when he finally sees the pornographic film featuring his daughter, the camera lingers on his face, not the screen. His reaction tells you everything. It's one of the most devastating moments in the 70s cinema. Now, what makes Hardcore different from Taxi Driver is that Schrader doesn't mythologize the violence here. There's no you talking to me moment, no cinematic explosions or madness. Instead, the violence is emotional. Jack's faith, his fatherhood, and his identity are stripped bare until nothing is left but confusion. The film's ending doesn't offer a triumph, only exhaustion. So when he finally finds his daughter, there's no catharsis, no Hollywood reunion. Just two people broken by the world trying to understand each other again. Now, it's fascinating how Hardcore's story found its emotional echo in a completely different cultural setting through the Tamil film Mahanidhi, released in 1994, directed by Santana Bharati and starring Kamal Haasan. Mahanathi is not an official remake, it's clearly inspired by Hardcore, and in many ways it deepens the tragedy. Kamal Haasan plays a widowed father who sends his daughter away to study, only to find out later that she has fallen into exploitation and abuse. Like Hardcore, it's a journey of loss and guilt, but the emotional weight in Mahanidhi feels even heavier because it's grounded in the Indian context, where societal shame and moral collapse carry generational consequences. Now, both Hardcore and Mahanidhi explore how a father's quest for redemption becomes an emotional and moral labyrinth, but where Schrader's America is cold and distant, Mahanidhi's India is suffocating. Now filled with moral policing and social hypocrisy, Kamal Haasan is portrayed of guilt and helplessness, which mirrors George C. Scott's anguish. But his performance leans more towards emotional devastation than anger. You can almost imagine Jack Van Dorn's Calvinist guilt reborn as a South Indian father's sense of cultural shame. Now both films end not with victory but with understanding that some losses can't be fixed, only carried. Now returning to hardcore, what's striking is how Schrader's direction feels like an extension of his own upbringing. Having grown up in a strict Calvinist family himself, Schrader infuses the film with personal conflict between faith and flesh, morality and survival. There's an almost biblical structure to the narrative. Each scene feels like a test of belief. The script doesn't moralize, it exposes. You see the hypocrisy in the pious and humanity in the corrupt. In that way, hardcore is not just about saving a daughter, it's about a man confronting the fragility of his own righteousness. The Kino Lorber Blu-ray presentation does justice to the film's gritty texture. The new HD transfer preserves the raw grain of Michael Kampman's cinematography, the same cinematographer who shot Taxi Driver. The neon glow of Los Angeles, the dimmed red light of Bond theaters, and the flat grey skies of Michigan are rendered with authentic contrast. The color palette stays true to the late 70s tone, earthly, dark, and unembellished. Now, the Blu-ray isn't glossy, it's honest just like the film. The LPCM mono soundtrack carries dialogue and ambient sound with clarity. You can hear the hum of the city streets and the murmur in dim bars without distortion. The disc also includes a Schrader's commentary track, which is a gem, hearing him dissect his own moral intent, like how he sees hardcore as a film about the illusion of purity, which adds depth to the viewing experience. There's also a short featurette that revisits George C. Scott's career and how he approached this role after Patton. It's fascinating to see how an actor known for playing larger-than-life characters chose to portray a man shrinking into his own despair. The Blu-ray packaging by Kino Lorber is beautifully done. The cover art uses original theatrical poster, like Scott's shadowed face overlaid on the Los Angeles cityscape, a perfect visual metaphor for moral darkness creeping into Middle America. Now, in tone and structure, hardcore sits between Taxi Driver and Mahanidhi. It shares the former cynicism and the latest emotional devastation. What unites all three is a father's moral reckoning, which is a recognition that the world can't be purified, only understood. If Taxi Driver is about isolation, hardcore is about confrontation, facing the rot within the society and within oneself. George C. Scott's Jack Van Dorn doesn't find redemption. In fact, he finds perspective. That's Schrader's cruel mercy. Like, understanding doesn't really save you, it only exposes you. And that's what makes hardcore such a haunting experience even today. For me, hardcore stands as one of the most emotionally raw films of the late 70s, which is deeply personal, spiritual, conflicted, and uncomfortably honest. I'll give hardcore a 4 out of 5 stars, not for comfort or entertainment, but for courage. Few films really dare to confront fate, guilt, and underworlds with such unflinching conviction. And if you've ever seen Mahanidhi, you'll understand. Pain may speak in different languages, but the silence it leaves behind is the same. Now, this movie is a must-watch.